Few sovereigns in history have cast as extensive a shadow as King Harry VIII. Renowned for his commanding presence, his dramatic break with the Catholic Church, and a matrimonial saga as intense as any Shakespearean drama, Harry ruled England with a blend of daring ambition and sheer power. Yet behind the magnificent portraits, lavish banquets, and resounding declarations lay a deeper, more intricate tale. One of physical suffering, deep personal doubts, and a wound that never fully mended. It all began with a thunderous accident in the year 1536, when Harry fell from his horse during a jousting contest. That single event marked the start of a prolonged and agonizing decline into illness that ultimately altered the course of the English crown. Help us bring more history to light. Subscribe now. In his younger years, Harry VIII had embodied the ideal Renaissance ruler, tall, athletic, and magnetic. He excelled at jousting, was a talented musician, and a passionate supporter of the arts and humanist ideas. His court sparkled with luxury and refinement, attracting admiration from all over Europe. Yet beneath this splendor, his obsession with securing a male successor weighed heavily on him. This fixation influenced many of his political moves and personal decisions, including the notorious split from the Catholic Church to wed Anne Barnes. However, after his disastrous fall during a joust with Sir Harry Norris, all that vitality and energy began to diminish. The accident was severe. Fully armored, Harry was thrown to the earth while his horse collapsed upon him. He remained unconscious for hours, leaving the court in terror that he might not survive. Anne Barnes, who was then expecting, was heartbroken. Within a few days, she suffered a miscarriage of a male baby. Some believed this event sealed her fate politically. In the harsh realities of Tudor court life, her failure to produce a son played a significant role in her swift downfall and execution only months later. The injuries Harry received on that day affected him more than just physically. The wounds on his legs turned into ulcers that refused to heal properly. Lacking modern medical care, these sores became infected and unbearably painful. Doctors tried excruciating treatments like cauterizing with burning irons, but nothing helped. Harry's once vigorous walk transformed into a painful limping shuffle. He grew more irritable, suspicious, and unpredictable. The once strong young king now ruled burdened by constant pain, and this suffering affected both his court and kingdom. The change was not only physical, but also psychological. The ongoing agony deepened Harry's paranoia, making him more ruthless and capricious. Once a charismatic diplomat, he now governed with a harsher and more unstable hand. In the same year as his accident, he had Anne Barnes executed on dubious accusations and quickly moved to wed Jane Simmons. Although she gave birth to his much-anticipated son, Edward VI, she died shortly after, leaving Harry a widower once more. From that point, his health steadily declined. The ulcers on his legs restricted his mobility, and with no exercise to balance his excessive appetite, Harry gained a tremendous amount of weight. His feasts were famously abundant, featuring generous servings of roasted meats, intricate pastries, and vast amounts of ale and wine. By the conclusion of his reign, his body mass had escalated beyond 300 pounds. He needed mechanical devices simply to move himself within his specially crafted armor. The records speak of an astonishing 52-inch waist, yet he tenaciously held on to power with every ounce of remaining strength. Although mobility was nearly impossible, he persisted in making impactful decisions that forever changed England's religious and political arenas. He dissolved the monasteries, increased the wealth of the crown, and reshaped the monarchy's connection with the church. His formidable persona, still honored in governance and ceremonial tradition, concealed a man who endured excruciating pain whenever he walked. Harry's attire contributed to his difficulties as well. Renowned for his pride in appearance, he wore constricting clothing, including tight garters designed to highlight his once admired calves. This only worsened his ulcerations. Yet his pride forbade him from giving up the royal image he had diligently crafted. Discussing the king's illnesses was perilous. Gossip alone could result in treason accusations. On one occasion, nobles faced execution merely for suggesting the king's wounds might be mortal. As the ulcers deteriorated, so did the odor and infection. Courtiers noted that the foul smell from his leg was noticeable even from several rooms away. His temperament darkened, and his punishments became more abrupt, gaining infamy for his rapid ordering of executions. Among his closest companions and long-standing advisors, even the slightest critique could result in execution during his later years. Various medical theories surrounded his health, with some proposing diabetes or high blood pressure, while others believed in circulatory conditions. The previously dismissed idea that his excessive weight and chronic ulcers were connected has since gained support among scholars and doctors alike. However, no official diagnosis was ever established during his life. Harry passed away in January of 1547 at the age of 55, probably due to complications linked to kidney failure, obesity, and the persistent leg ulcers that had tormented him for more than 10 years. His passing signified the conclusion of a significant period, yet his impact continued to resonate throughout English history for many generations. He left behind a profoundly transformed kingdom, one that had severed ties with the ancient authority of the Roman Catholic Church, proclaimed the dominance of the English monarchy, and centralized royal power in a manner few sovereigns before him had achieved. Under Harry's leadership, the Church of England was founded, monasteries were disbanded, and extensive church properties were taken over by the crown, enriching the monarchy and radically changing the nation's religious and political environment. His decisions paved the way for centuries, filled with religious disputes and reforms, as well as the eventual dominance of Protestantism in England. Although driven partly by personal objectives and a desire to secure his family's lineage, Harry's reforms left an enduring and profound mark on the country's future. National repercussions followed, as his offspring, Edward VI, Mary I, and Elizabeth I, each took on a kingdom still shaken by their father's upheavals. Edward, a youthful monarch, advanced Protestant reforms, but passed away prematurely. Mary, fervently Catholic, sought to undo the Reformation and earned the dreaded title Bloody Mary for her harsh treatment of Protestants. Meanwhile, Elizabeth, daughter of Anne Barnes, rose to become one of England's most legendary rulers, overseeing a golden era marked by exploration, cultural bloom, and a measure of religious peace. Each sovereign steered the turbulent waters left by their father in their own distinct way. However, focusing on Harry solely from the perspective of power and political shifts overlooks a more profound and emotional chapter of his life. His later years were shadowed not by triumph, but by decline. The agonizing leg ulcers he endured were more than mere ailments. They symbolized his gradual decay and revealed that even monarchs are subject to the relentless march of time and failing health. These afflictions likely affected his mood, hardened his decisions, and intensified the distrust that triggered the ruin of loyal counselors, friends, and even his spouses. Although his suffering was concealed beneath regal finery and secluded within palace walls, it radiated outward, influencing the atmosphere of the royal court and shaping critical choices with far-reaching effects throughout the kingdom. Once celebrated as a charming, well-educated prince, fluent in several tongues, a talented musician, and a supporter of intellectuals, Harry's final days told a story of vulnerability beneath the crown. The artist Harry spent his final days isolated and in torment, surrounded by tired courtiers who dreaded his anger more than they admired his wisdom. His deterioration stands as a chilling contrast to his youthful vigor and serves as a lasting reminder of how personal suffering can spill over into the public arena, especially when that suffering belongs to someone wielding unchecked authority. Ultimately, Harry VIII's legacy is far more intricate than the story of 6 spouses and a fractured church. It is a rich and multifaceted tale of ambition, change, and human fragility. His rule teaches us that leadership is not exempt from pain, showing that the physical body, with all its strengths and weaknesses, can influence the fate of entire nations. The narrative is not simply about politics and power, but about a man who was once full of life and command, slowly consumed by the very body he once celebrated. In the end, Harry VIII stands as a monumental figure in history, not only because of what he constructed and destroyed, but because his personal struggles transformed into national issues, his suffering shaped policies, his fears altered faith, and his downfall, both in physical and metaphorical terms, reminds us that even the most powerful leaders carry within them the subtle, corrosive burden of their humanity. If you want more hidden chapters of history, subscribe and leave a comment.